Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is John Borden, an author, public speaker, strongman competitor, ultra marathon runner, and founder of Gets Hyped Fitness. But his story isn't about performance, it's about transformation. In his teens and 20s, John struggled with addiction, anxiety, and depression, caught in circles that were slowly pulling his life off track. Then in 2022, a turning point, an experience with psilocybin that forced him to confront years of repressed trauma and rethink the direction of his life. Since then, he has rebuilt everything from his mindset to his physical capacity, documenting the journey in his book, Your Mindset is Your Reality. John, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, Joy. Very nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
All right, yes. So I want you to take us back, right, to your 20s. So, what did life look like for you in your 20s, and what were you really dealing with beneath the surface?
Yeah, well, so I tell anybody that what I was dealing with wasn't that far removed from the way that a majority of people live their life in their 20s. Or what I have to assume is a majority of people in their life. I had a job that was paying the bills. I had a circle of friends that, were more drinking buddies than anything. I, was living life for the weekend, getting drunk, multiple times a week,
Mm.
had a 10-year cocaine habit, was gambling, using porn, chewing tobacco, so on and so forth. And, you know, anybody that looked at me would have said that's just a normal 29-year-old dude. There's nothing crazy wrong. But when I had the experience that I did have, I recognized that you know, we all kind of are living life a little bit wrong at that point, just because everybody's not making the most of their lives doesn't mean that it's okay for us all not to not make the most of our lives. And I saw an opportunity to stop bad habits, to create good habits, and to ask what I actually wanted out of life. So rather than, living life for the weekend and, indulging in the cheap pleasures, I started to focus on the things that actually mattered to me and have built and built and built from there. And it's been an incredible journey.
Wow. Okay, first of all, I would say your journey is one of strength and resilience because it takes a whole lot to, um, think back to your decisions, right? And decide that, you know what, I've not been living the best of lives and I want to change my lifestyle and try to live a better life. It takes a whole lot of strength to do that. So I must applaud you or commend you for what you did. And yes, thank you for coming here to share your story with us. And also, your turning point, right? You mentioned being one bad decision away from losing everything. So what did that moment look like for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was very close to wrecking my life at a number of points. I was drunk driving, I was putting myself at risk. Um, there was one day I actually totaled my car. I ran it into a tree and I walked away from that totally fine. And that should have been a wake-up call, but it wasn't. I still kept drunk driving after that. I still kept, leaving my house with a bunch of coke either in my pocket or in my bloodstream, late at night to go hook up with someone that I didn't know. And, something could have gone wrong so many times along that path. And I'm just really grateful that nothing did ever happen. And in October of 2022, I had the experience that I did with psilocybin mushrooms that allowed me to see how dangerous my habits were and choose to be different.
Wow. Okay, all right. So yes, I want us to talk about rebuilding your life because you were able to start afresh, right? You were able to, start living a better and healthier lifestyle, of which you're still doing till now, right? And I know
Hmm.
it must it must have not been a very easy journey, right? So you didn't just change mentally, you pushed yourself physically to the extremes, actually. So why was that important for you?
Yeah, well, so it all kind of went hand in hand is that, with getting myself away from those bad habits and creating good habits, it just opened up the question of what can I actually do with my body that I wasn't
Mm,
giving myself the chance to do before. And so, it's not like I push myself to the extreme for any sort of, I need to
mm,
prove this to myself or anything like that, but it's just what can I do? And it's fun to find out where that
mm,
limit is for myself. Just this past Saturday, I ran a Spartan Ultra through the mountains of New Jersey, which
mm,
took 11 hours and 24 minutes, and I ended up finishing third in my age group during that, a
mm.
race that had 40-degree weather, and we're talking Fahrenheit, not Celsius, with rain all day, and about 50% of the people started didn't finish it. It was 35 miles through the mountains, 55 kilometers, with 12,000 feet of elevation gain.
Wow. Yeah. That's a lot, I must say. That's a whole lot of achievements also. And yes, like I said earlier, trying to, change for better isn't an easy journey. It takes consistency and discipline, right? And you were actually able to maintain consistency even now compared to before, and also discipline. So I'm curious, right? What role did discipline play in your transformation?
Well, really it was everything. Because you can have all the realizations that you want to have, but unless you actually do something about it, nothing's going to change. And so, the do something about it's really the important part is that, you can see all you want through the experiences that you have, but uh, deciding a plan of action and going forward in that plan is really where all the positive change comes from.
Well, thank you so much for that beautiful one, John. So yeah, the word your mindset is your reality, right? So
Hmm.
what inspired you to, document your journey in your book?
Well, really, it was just that I had such an incredible life-changing experience. And, to say to somebody, hey, I had this experience with psilocybin mushrooms, with magic mushrooms, it doesn't really do it justice to what the experience actually was. Uh, so I realized that you know, if I wanted to connect with people and get them to understand exactly what happened, I needed to do it in a long enough form that allowed me to explain the ins and outs of what actually happened between my ears during the time that I went through the transformation. And so, it walks the reader through, exactly who I was before I found mushrooms, the things that I found out about myself that allowed me to rewrite that narrative of who I was, and then follows in the year and a half that followed my mushroom experimentation, uh, and continued mushroom experimentation to show how I was able to implement the changes that I'd committed to during that transformational period.
Wow. So, I'm curious, right? Your book, who is it really for?
Really, it's for me more than anything, right? It's for me, it's for my
Definitely.
family, it's for, the ability to tell my story. But
Mm,
really it's for anybody out there who feels like life is good, but that it could potentially be better. Because that's exactly where I was before I
wow.
found the mushrooms, is thinking that, I was in a good spot, and if somebody had told me that I could use mushrooms, I would have told them to fuck off. But uh, I recognized that I had the ability to be great, and I wanted to chase that. And so, the book is for anybody out there who might think that there's another level that they'd be able to reach, and I want to help them find that.
Mm, wow, all right. Yes, thank you, John. I think you're in the right podcast because also I think a whole lot of young adults are currently in that position. They feel like their life is okay, but they also know it can be better, right? So
Hmm.
I would definitely recommend your book to listeners out there. And yes, talking about a broader perspective, right? There's a whole lot of growing conversations around alternative approaches to mental health, right? So what's your
Hmm.
perspective on that in today's space?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a poster child for that. You know, the experience that I had with mushrooms completely changed the trajectory of my life, and up until I found them, I was dealing with anxiety, depression, addiction, PTSD, whatever. And a month after finding mushrooms, none of that was true anymore.
Mm, okay, all right. So, what do you think people should now be more cautious about when they are exploring their personal transformation path?
Um, I would say, don't don't get too married to one way of doing things, is what I
Mm,
would say. For a while I was on SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, antidepressants. And, I thought I'm taking this, it's going to help with the anxiety that I'm feeling. And, I had convinced myself that it was doing something, but in reality, it was just making me numb. It wasn't making me feel the anxiety, right? And anxiety is it's a useful emotion to feel because it means that we're recognize that we should be doing something that we're not doing.
mm,
And so, it's important just to be able to really take a good hard look at yourself. And that's really what all this stuff comes down to is how honest can you be with yourself? How honest can you be about the habits that you've created, the things that you do in life, and how can you choose to use that realization for your betterment?
right, well, yes, thank you so much, Don, for this amazing conversation. I must say, because conversations like this are always so important, especially for young adults, right? Young listeners out there. Just, gives them the necessary guidance that they need to, navigate today's world. Right. And finally, I would like to ask this before we go. I would love for you to, talk to someone out there, specifically young adults in their 20s, right? Who feels stuck in circles that they can't break. Because, sometimes things like this are easy to break. Difficult to break, right? Addiction are difficult things to break.
Hmm.
So, what would you want them to, understand?
You're one decision away from changing your life.
Hmm.
And as I say that, and you're listening to it, there's probably something that came to mind, something that, you say, I should be doing this. I want to do this. Just go do it. Remove the reasons why you're not doing it and just go do it.
Hmm. Right. Wow, just go do it, right? Okay,
Hmm.
it's all about the mindset, and like you said, you're just one decision away. Just decide and go do it. Right. Thank you so much, John. And yes, it moves me to the final segment of my podcast. It's called the rapid fire segment. So starting now, what is one habit that changed your life?
Breath work.
Hmm, breath work. Wow. Okay. What is the biggest lie people tell themselves?
I'm trying.
Hmm, okay. So discipline or motivation?
Uh, Discipline.
Hmm. And what is one thing people should quit immediately?
Alcohol.
Oh. That's a perfect answer. And yes, finally, what is one thing they should start today?
Moving.
Stop moving. Right. Exactly. So yes, thank you so much, John. And where can listeners get to learn more about you and
Yeah.
also connect with you?
My Instagram's the perfect place. You can find me on there at Johnny B, JohnNniebe.
All right, Instagram. And yes, I'll definitely check that out so I can also give a follow. Right. Thank you, John. And yeah, to my listeners, thanks for tuning in to Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this, and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episode. Once again, thank you, John, for this amazing conversation, and do have a wonderful day ahead of you.
You do the same, Joy. It's been a pleasure.
All right.